Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. It's been widely talked about and speculated, but Joe Joyce, Filip Hrgovic now officially confirmed. So we'll talk about this fight, the reaction from the fighters, and I guess there's a few sort of sticking points about both fighters that are worth discussion. But first, so to the announcement, you can see the promo poster here. Queensberry saying new opponent alert. Remembering Joe Joyce was meant to face Dillian Whyte. Whyte pulled out with a hand injury, so they continue. Joe Joyce will now take on Filip Hrgovic on a heavyweight hitting card not to be missed. The Croatian also joins the home of heavyweights. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because if he's now with Frank Warren has this spoils of riches at heavyweight. It's kind of ridiculous. Must be about 20 different heavyweights. The past 2 years has been pretty incredible for Frank Warren and his burgeoning heavyweight stable. And also some other news, which I'll cover in another video more specifically. David Adlai and Jamie Shakiva, or TKV, that is now going to be for the British heavyweight title. It is also on that same card, which is now headlined by Joyce and Hrgovic. This is Queensberry's first event on DAZN as part of their new relationship and sole broadcaster deal, all that sort of stuff. So in terms of what Joe Joyce is saying, he says, Whyte pulled out, so I called for a top tier heavyweight. Filip stepped up, we've fought before, and I'm ready to face him again on my way back to the top. And you have Queensberry saying, no matter the opponent, the juggernaut is always ready for war. And these two are known to each other, having fought in 2013 in the World Series of Boxing. So for over 5 rounds, and this one here was a win by split decision for Joe Joyce in 2013. You might also see here, that was the year that Joyce fought Usyk, and obviously we know that Usyk outclassed him. So Joe Joyce, he hadn't been in boxing that long, only a couple of years in the sport by then. He had previously been a collegiate athlete in the United States. Injury sort of derailed that, got himself into boxing and had success almost from the outset. As we know, Joyce, the so-called juggernaut, silver medalist from Rio, Filip Hrgovic, bronze medalist from Rio, but they didn't fight each other in that Olympic bracket. Tony Yoka getting a narrow win over Joyce in the final. So this is, I think, a fight I was expecting that we would have when these guys were professional, given some of the amateur rivalry, but I expected it might have been a couple of years ago, and we might have seen a bit of Joyce, Yoka, Hrgovic, and a few other guys like Daichko, etc. from those Olympics. Hasn't really panned out that way, but I'll take this fight, and I've certainly got questions about Joyce and where he's really at, because obviously, we've seen he's not the guy from 2022 where he was walking through guys and punches for fun, and even stopping Joseph Parker in that year. And he had the WBO interim title. He looked like he was dead set on a title shot, that he was going to sort of steamroll his way to a title. But it just hasn't happened. He had his chin cracked by Zhang Jilei twice in a row, and I think that has taken something from him. There's a part of Joyce that was left in the ring after those Zhang fights. And even when Joe Joyce, in some of the different Instagram posts, actually I'll just pull it, and you might have seen in the last year or so, he has looked a little bit different. Some of his fights where he's come back, he hasn't exactly looked in terrific shape, and he's looked just not quite the same. And maybe he's even talking a little bit differently as well. And certainly the shape and condition for his last fight wasn't necessarily the same sort of ready and trim 260, 265 Joe Joyce. But he's got an opportunity here to put himself back in the shop window, because his opponent, Filip Hrgovic, who a week ago posted on March 5th that he was having his comeback, hashtag Team Hrgovic, hashtag big news soon. And this is when news of the fight started popping up that he would be the opponent. And you can sort of see Joe Joyce question mark. So by a boxing fan here. But Hrgovic, similarly too, he was looking very good for quite some time. But he then ran up against Zhang Jilei had a very tough fight with him, got a narrow decision win in that one. He was dropped, and there was some strange moments in that fight too, which we've seen again, where it was almost like he was disinterested in going walkabout. And, you know, there has been a bit of an undercurrent with Hrgovic. Does he really want to be here in the sport? Is he really dialed in? Is he just doing this because he's good at it and not necessarily wants to do it? And certainly from what he said previously as well, obviously he was very close to his father, and the death of his father about 3 or so years ago, that was certainly a very big moment and pivotal in his life. And we also saw against Daniel Dubois where that one was a bit dirty. There were cuts. Sometimes Filip Hrgovic, you know, just looked a little bit off, a little bit disinterested, and you had Daniel Dubois ultimately getting the win there because of the cuts. So it's hard to know with Filip Hrgovic where he's really at. Does he really want to be there? Does he have that burning desire? But also Joe Joyce, he's basically 40 years old now. So we'll just go up to, so this is his amateur record, but in the pros, Joe Joyce, 16-3 now. He's 39 years old, and he has looked different. And even the photo from a couple of years ago, he looks very different to that now. And it is very apparent that that style and strategy, you can sort of say Adam Kovnatski had a similar thing where he was walking through punches for fun for a few years. It's now caught up with Joyce, and it's obvious that he can't necessarily do that. You had him getting knocked down by Derek Chisora not so long ago, losing that one narrowly, and that's led Chisora to another big payday. That was another fight where Joyce should have won. He was expected to win, and you could almost sort of say that if he loses this one, the sort of world level fights, the opportunities for the big money, they may be gone for Joe Joyce. It may just disappear for him. But I guess in terms of Filip Hrgovic, with this announcement of this fight, you've got him with Queensberry. And this is a big deal for Queensberry and also for Hrgovic. And hopefully he can just be better promoted. If he wins this one, hopefully he's more active and in more meaningful fights more often, because too often in his career, what we've had, and you had him being promoted by Wasserman, which was formerly the Sauerlands, and then co-promoted for a number of years as well with Wasserman, with Matchroom Boxing, and just not getting decent fights just nearly often enough. I mean, you had this really underwhelming run of Alexander Kartozia, Rydell Booker, Marko Radoncic, Emir Amatovic, and this is when he's with Matt. It's like people just wouldn't fight him. Finally, he gets the sort of fight that he needs with Zhang Jilei, and perhaps arguably because he'd been inactive and facing subpar opponents, maybe it hurt him there. Still ultimately got the win. But even against Dempsey McKean, who we've seen him smoked in a round by Moses Itoma since, McKean went 12 rounds, or, you know, got stopped in that 12th round. But it wasn't like Hrgovic was looking like anything special. So inactivity and subpar promotion have been something that have hampered Hrgovic's career, and I've been banging on about that for so long. He was, out of those 2016 games, I thought he had the most natural talent and the potential to go far and become a titleist, but it feels like it's squandered potential at this point. So it's an opportunity here against still a big name in Joyce. It's going to be a big event. They'll be headlining a heavyweight, heavy card. It's all there for Hrgovic. If he really wants it, we're going to have to see him show a little bit of desperation and show his wares and what he wants to do in the heavyweight division, because he needs a statement. Both these guys need a statement. I'm sort of maybe slightly favouring Hrgovic in this one, but also Joyce too knows that this could potentially be a loser leaves town type situation. Knocking on the door of 40 years old, having just lost to a very shop-worn Derek Chisora, who still is a gatekeeper to the world level, but if he keeps the gate closed, it's not great for your future prospects. So for Joyce to get straight back out in a big fight with Hrgovic, it would have been Whyte, and I think he would have stopped Whyte. I think this is a harder fight for Joe Joyce than Dillian Whyte would have been. Whyte is shot to bits. I think Hrgovic has got more about him. He's still got more of his prime left, but there's question marks about both. The dedication, discipline, desire for Hrgovic? Does he really want to be there if times get tough? Is he one of these fighters, as say Tony Yoka's been called, a bit of a flat track bully? When things are going his way, he looks great when he's on top, but as soon as he's pressed and not in control, sometimes doesn't know what to do. So we'll have to see with this one, because I think what's clear is Joyce will be there. He'll be coming forward, and there will be openings for Hrgovic, and he should find them, and he's got decent pop. But will Joyce and the mental pressure overwhelm Filip Hrgovic? Both these guys, I mean, this is why it's a fascinating fight, and I'm glad we're seeing it, because there's known unknowns and also known knowns. So, yeah, what do you make of it? I like the fight. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.